I like salad. Do you like salad?
Hi, I'm Hostion Ho. I'm living in Vancouver, BC, Canada, unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I am an immigrant to Canada from China.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrea coming to you from Victoria, but more importantly known as unceded Akwesasne territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations, and I am an immigrant from the United States of America. And you're listening to
Canadian salad.
Canadian salad. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Happy Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, depending on when you're listening to cover them all.
Happy spring. How
Yes,
about
happy
that?
spring.
It's kind of spring.
Yes,
Yeah, still kind of
it's
spring.
true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
also close to International Work Day. Did you know that?
Labor
Yes.
Day, you mean? May
It's
1st?
international. Yeah, it's international.
I think May
Isn't
1st is International Labor Day. Yes.
International Labor Day. Yes, I
Yeah.
voiced it wrong. Yes. So, did you take the
Yes.
day off on May 1st, Ocean? To
No,
celebrate your
absolutely
workerness?
not.
No.
I have to work on an International Labor Day. That's how I pay tribute to
Rude.
my labor.
Can you imagine the whole world didn't work for a day? That would be
Ooh.
really interesting. I wonder
I
how
think
happy
so.
we would all be.
True. Well, yeah, I think the world, there's no plane would be flying, no
I know,
restaurant be
right?
open, no grocery.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't think the world will, go on if one
Just for
stop for
one
one
day?
day.
Really? You think
Nah.
so? I guess
No, because
not.
for example, I used to work in like a metal kind of company, like they make metal. The
Sure.
furnace had to be on 24/7 because it takes way more energy to
Sure.
reheat a furnace to the
That's
temperature
true.
yeah.
That's a good example. I also heard that cows, if you don't milk them every day, that their bladders get kind of sore and they get painful. So you actually have to milk cows every day. I heard.
What? I mean, when they're pregnant, I assume. Not if,
Yeah, well, no, the female cows that like the milking cows, right?
yeah.
They're
But then
not
they're not
pregnant
gonna
though.
pregnant like 24/7,
No, but you have to milk them.
365.
Anyway, this episode is not related to milking cows or metal, but it is related to the Canadian work experience. And it's
About
going to be
labor.
yes, and it's going to be very juicy and very ranty because I have lots of thoughts about it, about the phrase the Canadian work experience. So I thought we could really, before we deep dive into this and all the stats and all the things we're going to say to address those naysayers who like to blame immigrants for everything, I thought it would be great if we could just rant for like 5 minutes. I'm going to set a timer, Hoshin. 5 minutes. We're going to just kind of express how we feel about what this phrase does, what it means, and how maybe we've experienced in our lives. So, where's my timer? Here we go. Okay.
You have a
It's almost
timer?
there. I do have a timer. Okay, here we go. We are at 5 minutes and go. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to go first?
Yes. Okay. Canadian work experience. Can you tell me how many immigrants have heard that? And can I tell you, I've never heard that. That's never been said to me. I'm an immigrant from the United States and no one has ever said it to me, but so many other of my friends have had it said to them, primarily my friends of color, which I think, my personal opinion, the term lack of Canadian work experience for not getting a job is just a very racial way to say, I don't want to hire people of color.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's my
That's your
my
rant?
Yes, and it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed, Hoshin. It's been doing that it's been happening in Canada for like probably the past 20 years. And it's just so frustrating because we always hear about, oh, there's so many jobs, we have so many needs, we have, Canada doesn't have enough people, to fill the labor market. And yet how many of our friends from Royal Roads had to go back to their home countries because they couldn't find a job here?
I agree. And a lot of them because of the so-called Canadian work experience. I remember when I first come to Canada as well. When I even get an interview, they ask, "Oh, have you worked in Canada? What sector have you in? How can you relate, to the Canadian work experience?" And I always find it really crazy. I work in many other countries,
Exactly.
Why do you think working here will be any different?
Right. Exactly. Like what makes
Yeah.
Canada so superior
Yeah,
that
isn't
that anywhere else is just inferior and doesn't
yeah,
qualify?
I don't think the Excel sheet will be any different than
No.
the one I work in Japan, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly. No.
I don't
Uh-uh.
exactly not. I don't think the Word document, the Microsoft softwares are any different than anywhere else that I work in.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
those are like basic like entry jobs. We're also talking people who are teachers, people who speak like 100,000% English, who were raised speaking English and worked as teachers, and they can't get a teaching job because there's
Mm-hmm,
some kind of requirement. And we're going to get into this, but yes, it's just so, so, so frustrating because it's not changing. And
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
the fact that it's not changing means that we're not doing enough. I mean, I know the government pours money into social settlement services, right? Into English classes and into skills development. But the thing I hear a lot is, well, you should just volunteer. And volunteering,
Yeah,
oh my
same. I've also
gosh. Oh my
volunteered.
gosh.
I
Okay, so
was,
you work for
yeah.
free. We may or may not hire you, but even then, that volunteer experience isn't Canadian quote unquote work experience because you weren't paid.
Yeah, it's not really work, it's volunteer, baby.
Oh my gosh.
And they usually give you this kind of like very, yeah, very
Yeah.
the job that no one wants to do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
So, what was your first job in Canada?
My first, like the volunteer one or like pay one.
Like paid one?
The pay one, I was actually a translator, which is my old, like, what I used to do
Oh,
before.
yeah. At Royal
Yeah.
Roads, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I was a
Okay.
translator,
Okay.
interpreter. So that's my first pay job.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's the most experience I have, I guess.
Yes, that's
So they
it.
hire the most experience the field that I have most experience in. So
Yeah.
they hire me for that. Nowhere, nothing
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I
What
know
about
you
you?
did a
What is
good
your
job.
first? What is your first?
I worked for Fastenal. They are
Arsenal.
a car and they're a car parts company.
Oh,
And also I think construction as well. So I worked in a warehouse with like five other guys, and I would basically a shipment of, let's say, screws or nails or whatever pieces, bolts, would come in, and then we'd have to basically count and weigh those pieces into little bags that we would then stock and put on the shelves.
okay.
So that was my first job, and I did that for 2.5 months. Was biking a lot.
First job in Canada.
First job in Canada.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So it was kind of factory-ish, but my hope was to do sales because I had a background in sales.
yeah, yeah.
But the workplace was very toxic with all the guys that I just didn't want to work there anymore. And so
Mm,
I did. I
fair.
quit. And that's where you were feeding me meals because I couldn't afford very much. And I was living off the food banks because I didn't have a job that was paying me enough.
Mm-hmm.
My second job was working at TD Bank as a frontline desk person, or like I
A
would take,
teller kind of.
yeah, a teller.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
anyway, yeah, yeah. But
And now I work in
Fastenal didn't tell
TD.
me. Now you work in
Oh,
TD.
yeah. Oh,
Okay.
now in TD.
Okay. My
Oof.
timer stopped. So we have to stop ranting. It feels good to get it out though. Can I
It
just
feels good.
say it
Yes,
does. It does.
I know.
So
And now you work for yourself, and I still working in a corporate setting.
yes, you are. Yeah. But I think with that though, I mean, and you've said you have friends who have been denied jobs because of the lack of Canadian work experience.
I think that's a very
Um,
common immigrant experience.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
I just to jump right down to it, what does lack of Canadian work experience actually mean? I honestly have my interpretation. Do you want to take a poke?
Okay. Well, okay. Please. I'm poking you away.
Oh,
Taking
well,
a
I already
poke.
told mine that it's just a very biased way of not hiring people of color.
Yeah, I think they see immigrant as this kind of dumb people that have, if you never work in Canada, you will not have no idea how Canadian work environment kind
Mhm.
of functions, or you will have no idea these etiquettes, and you will make a lot of unnecessary mistakes and make HR a nightmare because you don't know this kind of how to interact with normal people or work office setting. So they will put this out there so to make them feel like, okay, in this way, we will maybe save us a lot of resources to teach these immigrants how to function normally in an office
Yeah.
setting, which
Yeah.
again is, as you mentioned, is very racist in many ways.
Yeah.
And think that somehow countries outside of Canada does not have a similar work culture, or like, or these immigrants somehow cannot learn
Mm-hmm.
quick enough how to
Mm-hmm.
normally,
Yeah.
function around other human being in a work setting,
Right.
which in many ways is bizarre.
It is. And very condescending, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of saying, oh, there, you don't know very much. And I'm going to be that, I'm going to be that person that teaches you. I mean, when I actually tried to find the definition, there are so many places that don't know what it means. Like, it's so subjective. There really is no one consistent meaning. It was the Conference Board of Canada in 2022 that basically said, when employers use this, we're not going to hire you because of a lack of Canadian work experience. They actually say that statement and refusing immigrants employment reduces the efficacy of the immigration system, right? We have some of the
Obviously.
highest levels of immigration on the planet. And we're not actually making sure that system employs people that we're bringing in, right? It's really left to the employer. There was a article that came out in the Global News in 2023, and a career counselor was saying that there's no matrix for what's not a fit. She says so many immigrants come to her and ask her, is it my name? Can I change it? Can I whiten my resume? Like, immigrants are actually asking these questions at career counseling places because they're not getting the invitation, they're not getting the interviews, right? And with the inventions of AI, and with an already, if an employer already has a systemic bias or a racial bias towards people of color, immigrants of color, then AI can be embedded with those same kinds of biases in employment screening, thus pushing out more people. But it was the Journal of Integration and International Migration back in 2010, which said that actually looking at an immigrant's lifespan or just their integration, employment in that first year of settlement is actually really critical for sustaining their life in Canada. Like,
no doubt.
right? Like, if you can't get a job within that first year, you're not going to sustain yourself in Canada. There's no amount of savings that's going to let you last long enough. Yeah. So it's a term that there's no rubric. It's all left to whoever, the mercy of the employer. And there's no way around it, because
I mean, that name is perfect to instill like racial biases. Yeah, that's just a great excuse. Canadian work experience.
Right. Exactly. It's a
perfect name for them to instill these kind of biases and their racism in it.
Exactly.
So they don't have to hire these people. Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of this, because we've talked about Canadian culture and communication being somewhat passive. It's a very indirect way to say, I don't want to hire you. So I'm going to give you some, excuse out of my nose that you can't be hired. The thing is that if immigrants aren't hired for Canadian work experience, they're never going to get that Canadian work experience.
Exactly. That's the always irony in this.
So it's this vicious cycle, right? And there are, for people out there who might be listening, who think that, immigrants are to blame for a lot of things, I just want to point out some data. Okay, some very basic data out here that actually proves that this is a real problem. Okay, so RBC came out with an article in 2023. And basically, like I alluded to earlier, Canada leads immigration targets. We're at the top. We're the highest of all the G7 countries. So Canada brings in more immigrants than the US, than UK, than Germany. Like, all of these countries, Canada's the highest, right? 8 out of 1,000 people are immigrants. Okay. So for every 1,000 people in Canada, 8 are immigrants. Okay. And over the last 2 decades, the government's been saying we need more workers. So the immigration streams opened up. Hey, you have work in construction. We need you. Hey, you speak French. Hey, you can come to Canada, right? So the government knows that it needs a workforce. And yet, when immigrant people come, there's all of these barriers, right? So immigrant women of color are among the highest demographic that face unemployment compared to non-immigrant women of color. 14.2%. Actually. So immigrant men have a higher chance. Immigrant women of color do not. Another stat, and this is, we'll have this linked up on our website, but this is out of an article coming out of CBC, but also that the higher the education, the lower the unemployment rate. So if an immigrant has like a master's degree, they are going to not be able to find a master's level job. The research has shown that actually immigrants with like master's level, even PhD levels, actually end up working jobs way below their academic level, their skilled experiences, and their professions. Immigrants also bear the cost of unemployment through unpaid internships, right? Low wages. We have the temporary foreign workers program, which basically pays federal minimum wage, maybe, hopefully, if the employer is honest. And then there's volunteering, right? It's like this free labor. There was a report that came out in 2019. It was the World Education Survey. And it was saying that 30.8% of immigrants who have a high level of education, their qualifications are not being accepted. So about roughly 1/3 of immigrants that come to Canada, if they have like a veterinary license, if they have a teaching license, if they have a degree in any kind of science or math, 1/3 of immigrants are not being employed for the same type of occupation. And so, and a quote just from that, I just want to say, it says, as you can tell from the report, if you're from an Anglo country or if you are white from even a developing nation, you certainly have a better chance of landing the position that you want, or at least having an equivalent career to the one that you had prior to arriving. But if you were to come from certain countries, or if you have a foreign sounding name, you suddenly have a much tougher chance. It's just simple and plain case discrimination. So this is something that when I go to teach employment workshops at immigration centers, when I was a newcomers fair and I was there representing Canadian Salad, a lot of people, a lot of newcomers and a lot of people who were immigrants for like 20, 30 years told me the jobs that they're doing now and the jobs that they left behind when they came to Canada. And all of them said, I kept hearing, you don't have any Canadian work experience. And so I ended up doing a degree or having a job that I had no interest in. You know, teachers were now janitors. Scientists were now working at McDonald's or DoorDash. And it's really, really a disservice because as much as Canada's bringing in, Canada's not sustaining.
It's not sustaining. Also, a lot of this, like for example, I have a friend who's Syrian. He used to be a dentist in Syria, and then now here he just is a dental assistant in a dental office.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he had to start at the very beginning.
Yeah. The only way for him to become a dentist again is to obtain a dentist license here. So do all the courses, which is expensive. As a refugee came here, it's almost like impossible to do that, I guess. So all the training he had, all the training he had back in Syria, now come to here is nothing.
Yeah. And that, I mean, we hear about, there's a shortage of doctors, there's a shortage of teachers, there's a shortage of these workers in these professions. There isn't. You're just not letting them work the job that they can do, right?
I think a lot of people,
Sorry. I just get so fired up because it's like, guys, we have the people, we have the experience, we have the professionalism right at our maple leaf doorstep. And what are we doing with it? We are wasting people's brains. We are wasting people's talent, their experiences, actually the solutions that they could bring to the table, different ways of handling maybe a root canal, maybe different ways of like, I don't know, constructing a house or teaching a classroom. It's like, no, there's some Canadian standard, even though there is no real Canadian standard.
I mean, the white standard is the Canadian standard.
It is.
Let's
European,
just be honest here.
Anglo-Saxon, yes. But I mean, yeah. So There was actually a suggestion. I think it was an RBC study that came out in 2021. But they were saying that actually, if an immigrant comes under the banner of school, right? They did show that if you do graduate from a Canadian university or college, you do have somewhat of a higher chance of getting employment after you graduate than those who have maybe higher degrees from another outside university. But that's a big price to pay for a job.
Because it's expensive to study in Canada. It's so expensive. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. So that's a big, big ask. And, sorry, did you have something to say before?
Yeah, this is also a great example of cultural superiority complex. Then somehow, my education is better here, and everywhere outside is not good enough, especially if you are not from a white country or,
Right.
Eurocentric kind of cultural centered country.
Exactly.
Somehow teachers outside of Canada is not good enough.
No.
No.
And I don't understand when Canada basically removed all the indigenous people, brought in people from Europe, like people from all over Europe with different cultural understandings and everything like that. And so but that's the status quo. That's the immigration system, is they want to keep it that way. Like, migrant workers, sure, we'll hire brown and black people to do the most terrible jobs. But guess what? Andrea from America, she can work at a bank. That's okay. Come on, get off your high horse. Anyway, so this is another thing that I read. Okay, so RBC put out an economics report. This is back in 2011, so it is a little bit dated. I tried to find a more current data. But Canada, at this point in time, 2011, I can't imagine it going up. Probably has. Canada loses up to $30 billion a year by not hiring immigrants. Because think about it. The higher paying job we have, the more we invest into our local community. We buy more, right? We trade more. We invest more. When we are basically handed scraps, what do we do with those scraps? We're basically trying to survive, save, right? And so actually it's losing Canada GDP every single year by refusing immigrants work. So, and that's a lot of Herkin money, $30 billion a year.
That I cannot conceptualize. I really cannot conceptualize this money that we are.
Yes, yeah, right. And so it's like, immigrants suck the resources, the social services, and it's like, actually, they probably use those services, but it's only for a limited time, and usually those services are well underfunded. Right. And most people don't want to live on a system, especially when you come here as an immigrant. Refugees especially want to have that independence. Like, I want to have my own life. So any last thoughts to all of this, Hostion, before I get into how we can make this actually better? Because I do have some positive solutions, I think, to this.
I think some thoughts. First is the idea of immigrants always rely on social services. There's some truth to this. A lot of refugees and immigrants come here when they first landed. Of course, they might definitely would need social services to kind of navigate their fresh new life in this fresh new land. But most of them, and I think we talked about it a couple episodes ago, about actually how much social services they take on, especially for a lot of culture, they're kind of ashamed to admit they actually had to rely on social services to live on. So that's one thing that we need to keep in mind of, that a lot of immigrants are not proud, nor that they want to keep using social services to live.
Exactly.
Unless they, of course, had no other means. And second, let's be honest, I don't think Canada's social services are that great that actually can sustain
primo.
Let's just be honest here. So this so-called, oh my God, all this money they take on for this because of social services, it's not a lot of money anyway. And if you're using your data as an example, if they're actually hiring immigrants, they actually save way more money.
They do.
Like $30 billion. And
Absolutely.
I do not believe Canada actually throw $30 billion into social services. Let's just be
No.
honest here.
No. I mean, I will say
Exactly.
compared to the States, there is a lot more social services here than in the States. In the United States is this rugged individualism. You've got to figure it out. And the government, the smaller it is, the less they help you, the better you are. So there is, I will say, but I do agree with you that it is definitely not enough. I think Canada could do a lot better.
Yes. The other thing is also think a society. I think this narrative that all this company that puts out that all you have to have Canadian work experience to work or to do a sufficient enough of job is also kind of feeding into this social stereotype, racial stereotypes for to the masses, obviously, and also these HR people who in these companies. I don't know. I usually like to think, or I just had too much faith in these HR people that are supposedly trained and were educated
Sure,
in these
that's
big
fair.
companies to
Yeah.
know that like a person's capability of work of productivity is not like rely on or determined by where they're from or their skin color, right?
Right.
And yet we kept this kind of tradition of so-called Canadian experience to as a standard to hire people, and that's sometimes very stupid
Yeah.
to all the it is stupid.
Well
So
said. It is. Absolutely.
So to all these HR people that are out there still putting on your job, your work the posting for hiring, still keep that work experience there. I'm just want to ask you, do you really think you deserve the title to call yourself a human resources
Boom.
specialist?
Boom. Mic drop, Hostion. We're done. We're done, folks. Have a great day. No, you're absolutely right. And unless that person maybe is an immigrant themselves or a person of color, I would hope that maybe there isn't a lot of internal racism for them and that they would actually be able to create, a more fair and just system. But yeah, it really is because that's why they have HR. But if there aren't any checks and balances, if there isn't we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion and how much we need those in workplaces. But I think that can be really whitewashed with, we've hired one person from South Asia. We're doing great on DEI.
We're good enough. Yeah. We have a data. My work, I'm the only queer person.
Well, yeah. And exactly.
I am the diversity hire. I'm always short in the data.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. But I do see this in other companies are like, our strategic plan was just released. And I look at the people who wrote it or the companies or the consultants. I'm like, 3 white women. That's not a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy. Anyway, but yeah, you're right. I think there needs to be some changes. Absolutely. Both internally within the agency, but I think Canada could do more. So IRCC, grab your pen. I'll give you some time. Go ahead. Okay, you got your pen? I've got some paper. You ready? Okay, you got your paper? So write this down. International cooperation. Okay, international cooperation. So this comes out of the Migration Policy Institute back in 2013. They provide 4 great solutions that I think are really wonderful to adopt. So IRCC, if you're listening, okay, the first one is automatic, right? So this is automatic, a mutual recognition agreement. So there's 4 pieces. So automatic means there's no additional training needed or assessment. Like you're a teacher, no problem. You can have a teacher role, right? You don't have to do any additional training. You're not going to have to start at the very bottom. We're not going to give you a test, right? Like it's kind of the gold bar of immigration and skills recognition. I've got my degree and I can use it anywhere, right? So that's the automatic stream. Then there's partial. So a person can be given some credit, right, for their position, and they will receive additional training or assessment. This could be like a rigorous test, like, okay, you're a dentist, you've been trained, you can practice, but we're going to give you this, really rigorous test to see if like you would pass all the questions based on the standards that we require, right? So that's a partial agreement. The third one would be limited scope. So you'd be licensed to practice, but you would have limited activities in that particular field. This is the last one. So you're licensed for a temporary period, and you also have to do more rigorous assessment and training. Like these are 4 kinds of pathways you could recognize immigrant skills and integrate them into your Canadian system. Because I do understand that, like, let's say mental health, there's probably going to be some cultural variances of mental health, right? Like some countries, you don't really talk about mental health, or if mental health is something, it might be very narrow in scope. Maybe it's related to the stress at the workplace as opposed to maybe family dynamics, right? So I understand that there's some cultural differences, but I don't think that means a person has to start at ground zero for everything.
Yes.
Right?
And all these 4 pathway that you just mentioned, none of them denies completely anyone's skill. I think any sort of recognition is important because like these immigrants, they hold degree or hold a position or hold some sort of work experience back where they were from. All this, some part of it or all of it should be recognized because it works for them in their country.
Yeah.
And the society there thinks this person is contributing, and then why somehow we here think no part of this person's work can contribute to the society.
Right. None at all. Yeah, exactly. And that's a good point. They are all at least, you're at least hanging on to the pieces and the skill sets and the experiences and the degrees that you have. You're not ignoring them.
Exactly, because especially we talk about like transferable skills all the time.
Right.
Like, when we talk about job, we all get talk about transferable skills. So if that person already worked before, why are we so arrogant to believe, oh, you never work in Canada, stay how you have no skill?
Right.
Where is the
Exactly.
so-called transferable skill we talk about all the time?
Exactly. Or these soft skills, and that's the other thing too. Like a lot of articles that I read, it's like, oh, well, English is a barrier. Come on. That's like 1800s talk when not a lot of people, like before we colonized the world with English, right? Like how many countries grow up learning English? Like most of them, right? And so the fact that, maybe we don't know the industry terms. I remember I was speaking with a gentleman, he was actually from Ethiopia, and he was a mechanic back in Ethiopia, and he really wanted to do mechanic work. And so he asked me, he's like, Andrea, I'm newly landed here. What could I do? And I said, if you don't know all the English words yet for industry, just start studying those on your own. Like there might be some English words that you use for like, I'm terrible with mechanics, but like shifter or I don't know, but like just get yourself from, exactly. Pipe, gas, I don't know. But what was really exciting was like he did that and he actually got a mechanics job not too long after that. Yeah.
See, words are easy to learn. Yeah.
They are easy to learn, but
soft skills are not. Yeah.
No. And the fact that this is the other thing is that immigrants too, we make communities safer. We don't want to mess up. We don't want to have to maybe go back, to where we came from or where we originated. So we're going to make the most out of everything that's here, right? And some of us have family depending on us to make it here. Right?
And immigrants always make the job done. We always make it happen.
We get the job done. Absolutely.
We get the job done. We make it happen, baby.
We do. And so the idea that someone would just come up and be lazy, come on. There was a painting company. Huge shout out to Van Isle Paint, Vancouver Island. Huge. Okay. And they came to us to the Victoria Immigrant and Refugee Center Society when I worked there back in 2016. And they said that they would much rather hire guys who were from other parts of the world because international immigrants actually took the job more seriously. They wouldn't show up drugged out or drunk, which they face that a lot with like
Oh,
Canadian
wow.
born white men,
Yeah.
right? And
Uh-huh.
so they were really eager to accommodate whatever requirement these gentlemen need. Like, we want to make it happen. If they need their boots, we'll pay for their boots. Like, we just want people who are consistent and show up and actually do a good
Yeah.
job. And we know that's in the immigration pool.
Yeah, because all these people just want to be here.
Right. We're
We
not, yeah,
Yeah, we're not like, enjoy all this privilege that are born here. So no one can just kick us out. So I don't need
exactly.
to try at all. But immigrants are not.
No.
Immigrants are afraid that they're gonna, people are gonna kick them out. So
Yeah,
they're gonna try their
exactly.
best in everything they do.
Exactly. So the second thing that I want to mention, what we can do to make this better, be like Ontario. In 2023, Ontario did a news release, and I quote, Ontario was the first province in Canada to ban the use of discriminatory Canadian work experience requirements in regulated professions under the Fair Access to Regulated Professions and Compulsory Trades Act of 2006. And recently, Ontario dropped the engineering requirements for employment. If you came to Canada as an engineer, you can work as an engineer in
That's
Ontario.
perfect. Mm.
So it's like, okay, so we need to make that happen, and there are some critics, yes, there was a law passed, and we're really thankful for that because laws can be effective, but you can't regulate or law someone to not be racially subjective and biased, which leads to my third point. We've got to be kinder, less discriminatory people. Hands down. I think employers really need to look at, when they are hiring people, they need to really look at how they're limiting their capacity as an organization by not hiring immigrants.
I think there's so much thing they can do. Like, for example, make sure when you're hiring someone, there's a panel, and the panel, at least half of them has to be immigrant. If it's
Exactly.
always the white person who decides who gets the job, who gets not doesn't get the job, then there's always going to be racial biases. I guaranteed.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's a panel, it's a discussion of hiring, and it's like a diverse panel, then at least we can minimize that biases.
Right. Exactly. And maybe expose the biases so that we're not using them in our decision making. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So like even for Ontario, as you mentioned, like maybe they cannot use words or any wording that are discriminatory, racially discriminatory. But if at the end of the day it was a white person who decides who gets hired, who gets the job, then these words at the end of the day does not mean anything.
Right.
It has to bring
Exactly.
an action to limit this kind of racial biases in place.
Right, exactly. And I've been very thankful that I've consulted some organizations, and I've always nudged them and said, hire people of color, hire immigrants. Those are going to be they're just going to be the most rewarding people that you've encountered. And people have acted upon that. And it's a dual joyful thing, because that organization is gaining an incredible skilled person. And that incredible skilled person is gaining that Canadian work experience, having that job within that first year, and actually bringing a lot to the table. It is, when you invest in people, you actually will see more profit. Profit is not just money. People are profit, right? People are an economy. They are something that needs to be invested in, that needs to be cared for, protected. I just feel like we could do so much better. I would love to go to an event where I meet a lot of people who have immigrated to Canada and be like, when I first came to Canada, I didn't have a job. I applied to this one place. They hired me right there. I got a job within the first year. I would love to hear stories like that. So IRCC, I believe in you. I believe in organizations. I think we have the capacity. We just have to be creative, and we just have to be kind. So that's the episode.
Ooh, okay, very loaded episode. How about we talk something a bit lighter
Yes.
and go to our Canadian salad pop quiz?
Ding, 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 ding. Yay. Yeah, let's do it. Hoshin, I've done a lot of talking and a lot of ranting. Do you want to go first, my
Yes.
love? Yes.
Pop quiz. I can
Okay.
go first.
Yay.
Yes.
Okay.
My question is, which industry, based on a 2021 data, which industry do you think hired the most
Hires the most
immigrants?
immigrant.
Yeah.
Which industry? Is it the hospitality industry?
No, actually, weirdly
Oh,
enough, I know.
the trades,
Mm,
construction?
mm, no.
No? Okay. Am I getting
Yeah.
warmer?
No. I guess
Uh,
warmer in many ways, warmer. Warm enough. They're all different things. Oh, by the way, all the things you said. So I
okay.
don't know which direction you're going.
Um, I honestly don't know. I mean, those are the two that I think are the biggest.
The biggest is transportation and warehousing sector. Remember your first job in
Oh,
Canada?
yes.
You were in warehousing, remember?
Warehouse. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm one of the many. Oh,
Well,
yay.
yeah, I found that in CIC News, according to Statistic Canada, immigrants, as of May 2021, immigrants aged 25 to 54 represents 38% working in transportation and warehousing sector.
All
Okay,
right,
what
my
about
love.
you?
Okay.
Yes,
From 2015 until 2023, what's the highest number of job vacancies there have been in Canada at one time?
job vacancy, like a
Yeah, job
percentage.
openings, amount. Like how
Um,
many jobs? Take a guess.
I don't know, a million.
Ding, 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 ding. 1,031,955.
What?
That
I
was the
got it right.
highest. Yeah, that was the highest amount of job vacancies basically in the past 8 years. Record low was at 330,000. But yeah, right now we're at about a million job openings in Canada. So
But no one's taking them. Crazy.
yeah, immigrants can't get a job, huh?
And then
Immigrants
you
are,
have all the vacancies.
oh my gosh. Yeah, just hire,
Just hire
yeah.
immigrants,
The
indeed, or hire me.
hire Hoshin.
I'm
Hoshin
looking for
is
jobs.
looking for a job. There you go. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my current employer is not going to listen to this, so I'm very
Okay.
safe.
I was hesitant. I didn't know if I just say anything. So but yes. If you do know of any job openings, do email us at hello@canadiansalad.ca.
.ca. Or you can
.ca.
hit us up at our
Yes.
Instagram, Canadian Salad.
Uh-huh. On TikTok
Hmm.
and Instagram. Yes.
Ooh, same name.
Same name. Yes. And stay tuned because we're kind of working this job thing, but we're going to talk about entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so
So the
if you
other
cannot find a
half,
job, yes,
yes,
you can find a job,
yes.
be
Yeah.
your own
And you'll be
boss.
surprised to learn how many immigrants actually make their own businesses because guess what? It's just much harder getting a regular job by a regular employer. So
Hmm.
stay tuned. Thanks everyone for listening to me rant. I really don't rant like this all the time, but I do love you all. And thank you, Hoshin, for listening and for all of your comments and thoughts and,
Please
and
comment. Please comment.
calmness. Yes, please do share us with family and friends. And yeah, sign up for our newsletter. We can't wait to talk to you next week and hope you have a wonderful week.
Talk to you guys next week. I guess I don't see
Okay.
you, so I will
Yeah,
talk
that's
to
right.
you
I
next week.
know. Yes. Bye.
Canadian Salad is written and produced in British Columbia, Canada by Hoshin Ho and Andrea McCoy. Theme music is by Naver Avatyan from Pixabay.
This has been a good Drinklin production.